Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm your host, Scott Keys, and this is your channel for photography, for wildlife, and for wildlife photography. But in today's video, you don't have to be a wildlife photographer if you're curious about a thermal monocular, what it is, but most importantly, what are the features of these? And if I'm making a buying decision, what do I need to know? I'm gonna let you know all of that, as well as wildlife applications, right after this. Now, I mentioned in the intro, you do not need to be a photographer for this video. You may have found yourself here as an outdoorsman or a hunter or a hiker. You might even be involved in security and you want information about thermal monoculars, but you can't find it anywhere. There's a lot of confusion out there. They're so expensive. I don't want to waste my money. You found the right video. I'm going to tell you about thermal monoculars, what the features are, what the price points you can expect are. I'm going to share my experiences. I did all the research for you, and I've used two products for over 30 days. So I can say with some degree of confidence, you watch this video, everything you need to know about purchasing one of these is going to be in this video. I'm going to do it in two parts. The first part is for the general public. So whatever you're doing here, whatever your occupation or reason is, stay tuned because in the first 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about purchasing these. I'm also going to give you a couple examples. In the second part of this video, we're going to dig into the wildlife application because what my wildlife photography friends want to know is, do they work? Should I invest in it? Is it a waste of money? I'm going to answer some of those questions for you in the second half of this video. I'll put chapters down there to make it easier. So for the general public, here we go, thermal monoculars. Now there are both thermal monoculars and thermal binoculars. I will tell you the price of the binoculars is very expensive, and the technology, because it is expensive even for one, when you get two of them, it becomes very expensive. So I really focused on the thermal monoculars because I think in terms of spotting, a thermal monocular is really all you need. I want you to think of these devices as spotting devices. We're not thinking about photography right now. These are not devices designed to take artistic images. These are devices used to find things that are difficult to find. They differ from other cameras in that these measure heat. Now, I'm not going to get into technical things with this. This is not my expertise, but I can tell you, I did a lot of research around what they are and how they work. The thing that distinguishes these and the thing that makes them so valuable is their ability to discern heat and not light. So when we talk about our regular photography and even our eyesight, we require light. These, however, can see in the absence of light. So they're great for nighttime applications. And the other thing I found them really, really helpful for was detecting things that were hard to detect even in visible light. Think camouflage. If there was something in the ground that was camouflaged so well your naked eye would have a hard time seeing it, this thermal monocular would actually pick it out quite well as long as there was heat associated with it, and most living animals have some heat associated with it. So for that reason, I found these to be really, really interesting, and that's the way they work. They work off of infrared lenses, not what we typically think of when we think of cameras in our other applications. So my interest in this was really around its ability to find wildlife, but again, you may have other applications for this. I'll show you all of that in just a second. I really want to dig into these features. So if we were to scroll through B&H, and since B&H loaned me this, I'll use their site as an example. If we were just to scroll these thermal monoculars, what you're going to see is highly variable price points and a lot of specs, a lot of numbers down there. And when I first did this, I really wasn't aware of what they were. I read a lot of articles. What do these numbers actually mean? And then I saw it firsthand, and I'm going to share that with you. There's a couple features I found to be incredibly important when looking at these. I'm going to feature 4 or 5 of these, but the first 2 are really the critical ones, and they also drive the price a lot. The first one's resolution. Resolution on these is a really big deal. At the low end, you can expect resolution of only about 180 pixels wide. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to use the width a lot, so I may say like 300 pixels. I'm always talking about the width of the resolution. All that means is that sensor can only record 200 or 300 pixels of information wide. That is very low resolution, especially if you're used to modern digital cameras, which can have 8,000 to 10,000 pixels wide. These are spotting devices. These are not devices used to create images like you would with a camera. So you really have to make that mental distinction. What am I doing with this? What's the purpose? It's a spotting device. However, with these spotting devices, the better your resolution, the better your ability to find things. You get to see more detail in that image, and it really makes a big deal. I'll show you some examples of that. So resolution, probably the most important factor, and also the one that drives the price the most. There's another really important factor in here. It's called the NETD. Now, this is a number or an abbreviation you will not see almost anywhere else unless you're dealing with infrared technologies. It's called the noise equivalent temperature difference. Think of this, I like to think of this as heat sensitivity. I don't even know if that's technically right, but it feels right to me. The ability to see heat and to see the differences in heat. The more sensitive that sensor is, the better the viewer will be able to see the object that comes out of it. So resolution, really big deal. More resolution, better picture, clearer. More heat sensitivity, kind of the same thing. It makes the images better to view, and it also makes things stand out. So things that have that heat signature associated with it, they're gonna stand out a lot more easily when you have a sensitive sensor. Now there's a couple more things in here. I talk about refresh rate, that's measured in hertz. We see this with monitors and TVs. Just know that the faster your refresh rate, the higher the number, the smoother the action is. It's important to understand that inside of this, there's a sensor. We talked about the resolution. That sensor is going to be viewed through a little tiny TV that's back here. It's a little digital display. That digital display is where that refresh rate comes in. So that display, just like a TV, will be smoother the higher your refresh rate. The other thing about that display is it's going to have an independent resolution, different than the sensor. The better that resolution is, the clearer the numbers and the letters and the graphics will be. But the image quality is always going to be determined by the resolution of the sensor, not the resolution of the display. So don't get hung up on that display resolution. What I found in using these two over the last 30 days is I was much more concerned with the sensor resolution, and I didn't see a terrific difference. Even though they had different displays, I didn't see a terrific difference there. What I was really worried about was that sensor resolution. A couple other features in here. Battery life. Obviously, the better the battery life, the longer you can be out in the field with it. So longer battery life was important. The memory in here, because we can record pictures and video, the bigger the memory, the better. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was just this, the actual lens. Think of a lens in terms of magnification. This particular camera had a 9mm lens. It's pretty short, meaning there's not a lot of magnification. The advantage for a shorter lens is we can see more. We can see a wider field of view. So I can see more of the scene, but the items in the scene will be smaller. This unit had 19mm lens. That gave me a little tighter field of view, but the individual objects were bigger. You're going to see that. In terms of lenses for these, what I find is the lower end seemed to be 8 to 9mm. The middle range seemed to be 19 to 25. And then you also had a range of like 35 to 50. More didn't always mean better. It just meant better magnification. So when we get to the part where we're talking about wildlife, I am going to talk about that field of view and the differences between those two. But just know, since we're talking about features, the different lens sizes will perform differently. And the smaller lens size is going to be around 9mm. The larger lens sizes will be up to 50mm. Those 35 and 50mm lenses I typically found on products that also had high resolution, which also meant high price point. Now I'm going to put a chart up here. This is my subjective chart. So when I researched all of the products and I looked at hundreds of products and I just looked at their features, what I find is this was how it paired out. Resolution, low resolution, good resolution, better resolution, best. Low resolution under 200, good resolution 200 to 300, better 320 to 500. Best was normally around 640, often in even increments. So good was typically like 256, better was often like 380, and then best was often 640. Sensitivity, so that NETD number we talked about. Low sensitivity, or I should say, low performance, had a sensitivity of over 50 mK. Good performance was around 35. Better was 25 to 35, and best was under 25. Typically, the absolute best I saw was under 20. I saw some down around like 18. So that just means they're very, very sensitive to temperature differences. Now the refresh rates went from 25 up to 60. The displays seemed to be between 500 and it went all the way up to, I think I saw some displays at over 1200. It might even been 1600. So displays varied quite a bit. Again, I wasn't as concerned with that. Battery life went from 4 hours all the way up depending on the unit. And then we talked about those lenses just having a range. I'm not going to put the lenses as better or best because it's just different. I will list them as smaller to bigger and what you can expect there. And that's my chart. Listen, bookmark that if you're interested in buying lenses. Take a screenshot, save the information. I think you're going to find it very, very helpful. That is a summary of buying a thermal monocular. Those are the numbers you need to know and the ones that you'll see listed when you go to buy product. Some of that stuff may not be evident, but you want to research a little bit and dig into this. Now, let me show you the 2 units that I have for this video. Again, from B&H Video, this company was AGM. This is called the TM19384. Those numbers, by the way, matter because it stands for something. The 19 stands for that lens in millimeters, 19 millimeter lens. The 384 is the resolution. So I'm going to list all of the other specs for that over here. This one came in over $1,000. They have several models. Most of their models are in the $1,000 to $2,000 range, but they have some less and some more. $1,000 is typical of resolution that's in this range. So 384, and I told you there's a range of like 320 to 500. In that range, you're probably looking around $1,000 to $1,500. That's the number one criteria. The other thing I want to show you though is that NETD rating was 35. All right, so just pay attention to that for a second. Now this one came in at $500. I wanted to get something that was a little more value conscious. I wasn't sure how they would compare. I'll show you the direct comparison in a minute. This is only 256 in terms of resolution, so 50% less resolution. It is, however, more sensitive to heat differences. You can see that in the example I'm about to give you. It has a 25 hertz refresh rate, which is a little slow. The display, it's that little miniature TV, it's a little smaller. The battery life's a little smaller. The lens is a little smaller. Put that all together, $500. All right, so $500. I'm going to call this $1,000. I'll put the retail price over there for you to see, but this is what I was dealing with. I ordered a third monocular at $2,000. I made a mistake. I ordered one I shouldn't have. I am not reviewing it. I'm not even talking about it. It ran out of battery within a couple hours and it wasn't rechargeable. And I just got frustrated. I didn't like the unit. I put it aside. I wouldn't recommend it. So I'm not even going to talk about the company. I'm not going to tell you who it's for. Send me an email if you want to know which unit not to buy. I would have been extremely curious to see what 640 resolution looked like. I would have been extremely curious. I'm kicking myself for not doing it. I am going to try to get my hands on one in the future though. So part 1 of this video, I honestly think I just gave you 90% of what you need to know, but a lot of you are going to be curious. What's it look like? And here we go. I am the practical person. I'm going to show you a direct comparison of these 2 lenses stacked on top and bottom. The top one is that $500 RIX unit. The bottom one is that unit from AGM costing a little over $1,000. You'll notice the one on the bottom is a little bigger. Remember, it has more resolution. So it's got a bigger lens. So it's going to magnify more. It also has a tighter field of view, so you can't see as much. Notice on the top you can see a little bit more because it's got a bigger field of view. You saw the squirrel earlier. You're going to see some birds come in and feed. This is taken during the daytime. The only reason I'm showing you this during the day, I told you, the advantage here is thermal monocular has no real purpose here when you can see everything with your naked eye. The advantage here the comparison here is just in resolution. I just wanted to show you the resolution. Now, if there was something camouflaged in this scene that couldn't be seen with my naked eye, this would pick it up. So I'm running through a couple of these settings. You'll see me changing the settings. I'll try to mirror these up. I tried to get the action so it was pretty close. I'm actually, funny thing is I'm doing this with one eye on each. So I've got like one eye over here and one eye over here. And I'm literally trying to do it at the exact same time. But I matched it up pretty good. You can see the difference in resolution. Look at the bird on the feeder. The top image is showing a lot more red. Remember, it's technically, that one's more sensitive to temperature change based off of its rating. And it is showing more red. It was more likely to find red spots than the bottom one was. But the bottom one, you could see, especially with the end, clearly had better resolution, and you could make out the subject when we were looking at that squirrel a lot better. So listen, that is as good a comparison as I can give you. And again, I apologize for not having a $2,500 unit in here, but I think for most people, what is practical, if you're a consumer, hobbyist, this isn't professional, most people are not going to have a budget for $2,500 for this, especially if you're using it like a novelty or a toy. $1,000 is going to be a huge stretch for a lot of people. So I'm gonna segue out of this part one. So if you're not a photographer, you found that helpful, do leave me a like and comment. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel, but leave me a like and comment. Let me know if you found that helpful. I'm gonna dig into part two. I'm gonna segue quick, so stay tuned for one more section. I wanna show you an example of what happened at night. So a lot of people are curious, well, Scott, you showed me the difference in resolution, but that's daytime. I wanna use this at night. The first one I'm gonna show you is that Rick's unit. And as I was scanning the backyard, remember it had really good heat sensitivity or thermal sensitivity. And I was scanning through just looking at my backyard at night. And I'm flipping a couple of cycles, but I saw this thing and I'm like, is that a real thing or is this just my imagination? This was probably the first week I had the devices and I was just playing around constantly looking for things. This was in my backyard. I was pretty sure that there was something there. It was not moving though. So I wasn't sure. I got out the other unit. Now, when I got that unit out, it was actually harder for me to find. I knew where it was. So you can see that little black, that dark area down there. I knew about where it was, but the heat sensitivity on this, remember, it didn't seem like it's quite as good, and it shows here. Better resolution, but in this case, didn't necessarily help me out as much. So I was having trouble finding it, but I was pretty sure something was down there. So I went and I took that same unit, and I went down and I walked out to my back fence to find out, was I seeing things or was something really there? And this is what was there. First, I thought it was a cat. And then I realized when it moved, it was a rabbit. I could not see this with my naked eye. So I could not, I took that thing away, had no idea what was there. Put that thing up, it was actually quite easy to find at this distance. The first time I was about 150, 200 feet away. This time I'm probably 30 to 40 feet away. So not too far away on this one. And you could see it stood out very, very easily. The heat signature came right up and you could actually see the shape of it. So again, whether you're a wildlife photographer or not, I thought that was a really good show of what this does at night. It's very, very helpful. If you want to stay tuned, if you're not a wildlife photographer and you want to stay tuned, I got some cool stuff at the end to show you as well. But we're going to transition now. Now I'm going to get into the wildlife photography stuff because a lot of people are curious, okay, I understand the features, but do I need it or do I want it? You do not need this. This is not going to make you a better photographer. It might help you find some stuff that's really hard to find though. So I'm going to pull up a couple examples of this and give you an idea of what I saw with this. Now in this first example, this is just birds in a tree. So this is what songbirds in trees look like. When it was very branchy, and I apologize, I'm not trying to make you seasick watching this. When it was very branchy, it was hard to see things. So the heat signatures normally came out. You had to be about 20 feet away, 30 feet away. If they were more than that, they became very small. You could still do it. I'll give you a couple examples of when this worked in times where I couldn't have seen something. I had a snow goose that was hundreds of feet away. It was just a little dot. And it was flying on a sky that was pretty bright. Could not see it naked eye. But I was scanning looking for stuff and I saw this tiny dot flying across the screen. Now, no practical application for that, but it saw things that I couldn't see with my naked eye even in the daytime. It did not, however, do a great job on things that were super dense. I showed you that bird in the tree. I looked for northern harriers, which are typically in grasses, right? So they roost in the grasses. And I searched through grass and grass and grass. Even birds that were in the grass, like sparrows, if they were buried in the grasses, I couldn't see them because there was too much in front of it. I wasn't sure how that was going to work. I wasn't sure if the heat was going to like show through the grasses. It did not. If the object was visible, or I shouldn't say, if the object wasn't buried, I could see the heat coming off of it. If it was buried, I couldn't. I did often find things I couldn't see. It worked incredibly well for bunnies and squirrels. I saw a lot of bunnies and squirrels. I'm not going to show you the videos, but that I couldn't see with my naked eye. But as I was scanning bunnies at rest that were sleeping in the woods, I had no idea they were there. I'd scan the woods. I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's a bunny there, there's a bunny there, and there's a bunny there. Found some deer that were sleeping in the woods that I probably wouldn't have picked out just because they kind of blended in. And again, that's the real advantage. Camouflage and nighttime. All right, I want to share a story with you because this was one of the defining moments. So clearly nocturnal use is going to be a big part of this. And so I have a great horned owl. He lives in my neighborhood. He kind of flies around different years. He's in different places, but I almost always hear him a couple times a year. I had been hearing him at my house before I got the devices here. And I thought, oh my gosh, just please let this great horned owl, I've never seen him. In 7 years, I've never seen him. Let him come to the house. Let me grab one of these. I will nail this video. This is going to be the proof of concept. And so not happening, not happening. 6 a.m. one day, I hear it, and it's still dark out. It's just barely light in there. So really, really dark. Grab the monocular, go out on my porch. I can hear him. He's fairly close. I think I know the general area. And I'm just up and down in the woods with the thermal monocular, up and down, everywhere. I scanned for 10 minutes. I could not find him. And I thought, this doesn't work. It's like if this is one of the primary functions of this, and I can't find a great horned owl in my yard right here, then this is no good. It is hard to see things sometimes if you're not getting that lit up heat signature, if it's close. So if there's a tree trunk and there's a bird against the tree trunk, it's almost impossible to see. I'll show you examples of this. I have all kinds of examples coming up, so do not leave me. But I was really, really, really disappointed that I did not find that owl. My guess is one of two things. Either the owl was really low below a hill that I couldn't see him, or it was behind a tree trunk and I just couldn't get the shape of it. I am sure after using this for a month, and I'll show you some examples, that I would have seen that owl if he was out on a branch. Now, to that extent, I had this for a month. I was having mixed results. It's going to be tough for me to give you solid advice at the end of this. I'm going to try because I had mixed results. Some days really frustrated, some days really happy with what it did. Toward the end, I was just like, I got to find something, and I'm thinking an owl would be great for this video. And I spent 2 weeks and I'm looking for owls regularly. Like at night, I'm going out, I'm listening for owls, screech owls primarily, because that's what I can typically hear. And I went to every spot where I thought I could find a screech owl. I visited like 10 different locations. Heard 3 locations with screech owls. Sometimes I get them at my house. I didn't have them this year. In those 3 locations, heard them, and again, I'm scanning through the woods, could not find them at all. And I was starting to get like frustrated again. A couple days ago, I was going to give these back before I made the video, and I had resigned myself that I'm not going to get these screech owls, but I gave it one more shot. I went to the area where I heard 2 owls calling back and forth. I went back to that area at dusk. Sure enough, they started calling at dusk, and I had this out. Here's what happened. I'm going to pull up a video. This is the first one. And as I'm scanning, now that doesn't look like much, does it? Remember, this is a spotting scope. It's just there to indicate I can see something that I couldn't see with my eye. I can find something that I couldn't see with my eye. And you could see that little guy out there. I'm going to flip through a couple screens. That one was supposed to light up red if it got enough heat. It did not. So that might be the unit, but there you saw the heat, right? He flew from one tree to another. He actually flew a little deeper. And as soon as he did, the wings opened up and I saw that heat signature. And I'm like, that's got it. But here's the thing, there were 2 of them. So I heard the other one calling, and I wasn't exactly sure where he was or she was. And there you go. Hard to see, right? Like it's not standing out. It's not like just jumping off the screen at you, but it's something you can't see with your naked eye. That's a screech owl. He was a little bit above me. I'm in my car, kind of shooting up the window, looking out there. I'm going to show you, because what I actually did is it was just barely enough light. Remember, this is at dusk. I could not see that owl with my naked eye at all. But there was enough light where I thought, let me try a picture, but it's going to be really tough. I took a picture at 1/10 of a second with like ISO 6400. Since I'm into the photography section, you guys know what that means. This was the picture I got. I'm not going to post this anywhere, but it was cool. I would have never done this. Now, what it made me think is, are there applications for this? Are there other things I could do? I'm going to show you another one real quick. Now, this is going to be just wildlife. And what this one shows you is me in my yard, and I'm just scanning. I'm not hearing anything, but it's night. I saw that, and I got really excited. I thought, that's a screech owl. That's a cavity, and that's a screech owl. There's heat coming from that, but there's nothing in that hole right now. I mean, there's nothing I can see. The heat's coming from inside the hole, but it's registering it, because remember, this detects heat. Now I might call this like a hot hole, like it's warm, so I could detect that. Now that I thought was a screech owl. I swear I saw that thing fly up to that hole, and my heart's like pounding. This is right at my house. Then I saw it crawling. It's actually a squirrel. I don't think it's a flying squirrel. I think it's just a squirrel, but he started crawling down the tree. I cut the video, but you see him later crawling down the tree. An application. Now I found something that I could never find. I know something is in there. I don't know if it's a squirrel or not, but I know something's in there. Practical application starts to make sense. So yeah, seeing things at night that I can't see, seeing things, maybe an indicator of where something lives, really, really good. I'll give you another one, and I don't have any examples of this, so I reached out to a friend, and I said, you've had one of these thermal monoculars a lot longer than I have, and she's a birder. She's like a hardcore birder. I said, can you send me examples of things you've captured? And the one I found really, really interesting is over here. It doesn't look like much, right? This is daytime. Doesn't look like much. You could stare at this all day with your naked eye, you wouldn't see it. It's a whippoorwill. And they blend in so well onto branches that unless you know it's there, we have all probably walked past these in our lives. You would not know it's there. She heard the call before dark. She knew the area using the thermal monocular. She found it. She could not see that with naked eye. So really, really great use for it. So maybe you're a photographer. Maybe you're just a birder. Like maybe you found this video because you're interested in birding. Some really good applications here. I'm going to show you another one that she sent me. Let's say you're, for some reason, I'm not into counting the number of birds I see, but let's say you are. These are horned larks. Now, horned larks blend into their environment really, really well. If you were trying to count the number of horned larks in this field with your naked eye, good luck. You got no shot. They're going to move. They're going to stop moving. Some are going to be at rest. You're not going to see them. You got no shot. I bet you naked eye it looked like 5 or 6. You go onto that thermal camera or that thermal monocular, you're like, yeah, 30, 40, 50. I mean, you could literally count them. So another great application. In this case, an application probably more for birders than photographers, but you get the idea. Really, really neat. So a couple things about this. I had really mixed results. There were some days I was frustrated. I thought I would see things like that great horned owl. I was out in the field looking for things in the grasses. It didn't do a great job there, but it found a lot of stuff. It found a lot of stuff at rest during the day that I would not have seen. It found stuff at night that I had absolutely no chance of seeing. It found camouflage. Now, again, I didn't have great examples of this. I just didn't own the product long enough. Found camouflaged objects or animals, camouflage animals really, really well. And it got me thinking like, what am I going to say at the end of this YouTube video? Am I going to say like, run to the store and buy one? Because I'm not sure I'm there. I'm going to pull up a collage that I made. I got a lot of videos. So I pulled a collage that I made and there it is. Okay. These are all owls. I told you this is a hardcore birder that sent me this. So this is not the same owl, but she's been birding for years in this area. She knows where all the owls are. And you can see in this first clip, she's just kind of looking. She knows it's there, it's calling. And she's looking, and eventually she'll lock in. I'm gonna let that play. So you're just gonna see a lot of different clips. I'm gonna put the model number she specifically uses. It's a little different than the ones here. I'll also put the price of that. The one that she used was very similar to the one I loaned, but had a bigger lens. So it had a 25mm lens versus a 19mm lens. By the way, if I was doing this for birds, 25, maybe 35, I think would be the sweet spot for the lens. So if I was buying one, I'm gonna put up what I would look for right here. As a bird photographer / birder, I would look for 300 to 400 resolution. I would love 640, but it's gonna cost me so much more. 640 is gonna run me a lot of dollars. I would look at a heat rating of 25 or better, so below 25. Refresh rate 50, 60, it doesn't really matter. Display, not as concerned with this. I'd like maybe 1,000 plus. They normally come in increments, so like 1080, be a nice increment. Battery life, I would like something that had like at least 6 hours of battery. Not a huge deal, but if I was choosing a camera, that's probably kind of what I would look at. What I would expect to pay for that. Oh, that's a tough one. It's about $1,500. I'm not gonna lie to you. If I wanted the better ones, 640 resolution, I'm probably looking at closer to 2,500 and more. That's a lot of money. So when people say, like at the end of this video, I struggled with it. What am I gonna tell people to do? If you're birding and you're curious about stuff, this makes a lot of sense. Is there a way maybe to pool money? So like a birding group owns one, makes a lot of sense. You know, you do these counts, maybe you grab one. As the birding group, you pool your money together. Then you got to fight over who actually gets to use it. You could co-op it with a couple friends. Like who's gonna get it? I got it for a week, you got it for a week. I'm gonna go out and do this. I'm going on vacation here. Maybe that makes sense. Because you're not gonna use this all the time. It has a specific purpose. If you were on a budget and really wanted this, I showed you what $500 gets you. I think it's not a product review. I actually think this one's pretty good. So I can't give you a full like, go do it endorsement, but I'm gonna say that one I was pretty pleased with. It just didn't have the resolution, but you're not gonna get resolution at $500, unfortunately. If you have all of the bells and whistles gear, like you got the lens, you got the camera, you're looking for something new. You wanna open a new door and you've got the money, do it. If you're the person that has a $2,000 pair of binoculars, to be honest, I would take $1,500 and buy this and buy a $500 pair of binoculars. Because as a spotting unit, this does something that the binoculars can't do. So I'll take a tiny sacrifice on the optical quality of my binoculars to score something that nothing else can do. I would think about that. So yes, if you have unlimited money, heck, go get the $2,500, $3,000 monocular. Yeah, I don't think you would regret it. My fear is this could be a novelty that people would buy and then put on the shelf. I'll put the links to these products. By the way, personally, I was pleased with both products. So I can't compare this to 20 other products, but I can tell you, using both of these, they both worked, they both had pros and cons, but they absolutely did what I expected them to do. And I was actually pretty pleased with this. The experiment was fun. If you have questions, down in the comments, you let me know. You know I'm gonna answer those comments for you. But before we do that, a lot of research on this, a lot of time on this one. Do me a favor and hit the like button. I'd love for you to be subscribed to the channel, but hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications. I do a weekly video. It'll let you know when I have the next one out. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with this. I'm not looking forward to sending these back because I have a few more experiments and maybe I can get my hands on another one day. But that's my video for you today. Hope you enjoyed. And for my wildlife photography friends, I hope we can continue to find inspiration in wildlife together.